Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, let's do a mailbag episode. Always a good time. The fans always have plenty of questions. Things are going really well for the Cubs right now, right? We just saw another series win. They beat Paul Skeens on Wednesday or Thursday. That was pretty impressive. To
No
say
doubt.
it was uh, after a tough loss on Wednesday with a pretty scary scene with the fan falling from the stands. Like a lot of like that was hard to watch as just like an observer from afar. I can't imagine what those players and coaches and everyone was feeling at that moment, and just getting through the rest of that game. But obviously, our thoughts are with that person and their family, and hopefully they're all right and come through this event all right. It was scary. I think there's a couple stories out on the Athletic
Yes.
about what happened and then background about that man. Uh, but back to baseball, the Cubs are playing well. It's it's I think
Yeah.
uh, I think we expected them to keep it going against the Pirates, but I think it was important to actually see that. Uh, there's some obvious questions, right? And
Yeah.
here's the first one. The first one is the obvious one. We just wrote about this. I didn't edit this, so apologize for the lack of capitalization here. If you're watching on YouTube, but how long can the Cubs afford to have this play at third base before looking to make a move by acquisition? That's from Tyler Dershel, regular emailer,
Yeah.
contributor to the show. Uh, yeah, look, I think it's the obvious question. I think we're all seeing the same thing. We're seeing mistakes at third base, defensively, subpar production offensively. I think what I like the first thing that comes to mind what that we wrote about, and I was doing research for this, and honestly, Patrick, it was kind of mind-boggling. Like third
Yeah.
base is just there's a dearth of talent there right now. It's
Yeah.
funny, I was looking this up, right? And I just kept going back in years, like trying to figure out where does this end? When does this get good again? Um, from 1950 on, this is I believe I wrote it was the third worst season currently by weighted runs created plus offensively for third base. Third base is equal to shortstop, only better than second base among positions. That's just not what we grew up watching. You and I
Mhm.
grew up watching, and it's
Yeah.
like as recently as 2016. Obviously, Chris Bryant's MVP season. Third base was had one of the best seasons in the history in like the last 75 years, right? So it's just a bad position right now. It's just the Cubs aren't good. They're not the worst team in baseball. They're bottom six, I believe, 25th in WAR, but like 19th or 20th in offense. If you're looking at weighted runs created plus, like that's kind of shocking to me that they're not
Yeah.
even that bad, right? Like, come on, like it's just like there's just not a lot of third base talent out there.
No, and I think if we take a step back here, because I sometimes see like, why do you mention Alex Bregman? Why do you write about, the one, bad spot on the field? And it's like, well, because that's what people within the organization are talking about. Like, this is why it stung the Cubs so badly in February when Bregman chose the Red Sox, because they think about the worst case scenarios. They wonder, like, and they also think about the best case scenarios. Like, how do you build a team that gives you the absolute maximum best chance to play deep into October, win a World Series? And for this particular year, Alex Bregman was that player. So, okay, we move on from that. But then you see Matt Shaw gets a really quick hook and gets sent back down. Gage Workman, not surprisingly, was a guy we talked a lot about in spring training and like didn't even make it all the way through April. I think Nicky Lopez and John Birdie are very solid role players. definitely have been part of playoff teams. You can see them making contributions in a variety of manners, but not really like an everyday third baseman, not like kind of the traditional way, we thought about it. So this is something that's nagging at the Cubs, and you see it in moments like, Vidal Brujan against the Phillies on Sunday night, of kind of playing back, against Trey Turner, and that allows an insurance run to score in the 10th inning. So like, if you want to be that team that plays multiple rounds in October and seriously contends for a World Series championship, like you're not going to have like all-stars at every single position, but you also want, dynamic players everywhere, guys that, can hit you a big home run or can make all the defensive plays. And right now the Cubs have not had that. And I think your mind-bending historical reference points kind of shows that it's going to be hard to go out and get that guy. That's probably why Matt Shaw is their best bet at the moment. But I will say, before like totally writing off the possibility, like in 2023, we thought the Cubs were like definite sellers, and then they got hot. And not only did they retain Cody Bellinger, who might have been the best hitter who could have been moved, they went out and got Jeimer Candelario, who was probably the most accomplished hitter moved at that deadline, I believe, or certainly one of the top hitters. And then even last year, when they were sort of selling, sort of buying, they went out and got an all-star third baseman, Isaac Paredes. So if they have a team that's either running away with the National League Central or has like a comfortable lead or maybe a dwindling lead, and they want to kind of get to the next level, I have no doubt they're going to exhaust every possibility to try and find that difference-making third baseman. I just don't think it's going to happen in May.
Yeah, you're not finding that player, no, in the next month or two. We'll see who falls out of the race and what happens, right? There could be an option, right? I don't want to assume that, you could make the argument that the Blue Jays should move Bo Bichette, right? I don't know what his market would be. I don't know, if people will pay a higher rate for him because he can play shortstop, right? So would the Cubs be kind of pushed out of that bidding if the Blue Jays were to move him? You also have to consider in that scenario that the Blue Jays are kind of like in win now mode, right? Yeah. Like that front office is feeling more pressure than Hoyer and Carter Hawkins and this front office, right? So I'm just assuming that he's not going to be available. They're going to keep trying to push in unless they just fall 15, 20 games under 500. I just don't see how they start selling aggressively. It may make sense, because his contract ends at the end of the season, but it's going to be, I'd be surprised if they move into sell mode. There's just not, like, Nolan Arenado is not a realistic option, right? Like they probably have to overpay for him. I never want to say never, because weird things happen. Jose Quintana happened when I think most of us were assuming that wasn't going to happen. There are moves that happen. There are trades that happen that surprise everyone. Just like mentioned, Isaac Paredes was not on our radar last season. So, I don't want to assume that they won't make a move. Right now, it's hard to get an upgrade at this very moment. Matt Shaw is the guy we should be looking at. Patrick, let's take a quick break and then get to another question.
If you want a razor that looks good, makes you look good, gets the shave done, and doesn't cost much,
Oh.
Is it nice?
That's a hairy John. And you can smell it too. Smell it, John. Smell it.
Oh, wow. What
After
is that?
See, that's Harry's. That's the shave gel.
Oh,
I'm telling you, look. I mean,
you look scary, man.
It's the shot.
Fresh.
Now come in, get this.
I don't want to touch this head anymore. Oh, my God.
That looks like German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer.
I'm using the razor, and it does not. You can start to feel when it
Yeah.
gets dull. I mean, you guys only do like here and like up here.
True.
I'm doing acreage.
Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/foul for a $6 trial set.
One thing I wanted to say about third base, Patrick, before we get to the next question is John Birdie's doing pretty well. He's hitting
nice
well.
player, nice player.
He's made some mistakes on defense, obviously a big one on Wednesday. But yeah, I think that was him, right? Yeah, that was him playing third at that point. But otherwise, he's been pretty good. I want to say he's above average offensive player so far this season. So it's not a complete, like I said, it's not a complete disaster. But Shaw's probably the long-term answer there. And that goes to this question, actually, the Birdie part. The bench pieces seem to be performing better so far than in years past. How much input did Counsell have there? That's from Blue Line Theology. So the bench pieces: Birdie, Bruhan, Kelly, Turner. Who there's someone missing in that group, right? Oh, Nicky Lopez. So here's the thing: John Birdie's been great, like I just said. Carson Kelly, I don't know if I'd call him a bench piece. He's co-starter. He's co-starter with Miguel Amaya, and he's kind of getting the bulk of the time right now because he's red hot. Bruhan hasn't done much. He's questionable on defense. He's fast. He's a great pinch runner. I think that's a nice bench piece to have if you have the depth to kind of overcome that. He's not going to be pinch hitting for you, but he's most value is pinch running. I think he has hit some balls hard. He hasn't found the grass much. And then Turner is struggling. I like the addition. Right now, you're not seeing much from him performance-wise. But ultimately, how much input did Counsell have there, Patrick? What's your feel on that?
I sort of asked him, a version of that question a couple weeks ago as Birdie was kind of emerging, and we were starting to see this team is really playing a certain way at Wrigley Field, really pushing the envelope in terms of base running. And as you know, Sahadev, Counsell, kind of likes to downplay certain questions and, look and shake his head or kind of sort of shrug. But look, we know, we've reported this. I mean, he is part of the inner circle in the front office of there's a handful of people who are kind of in that, final phase of any decision, their kind of thoughts are, taken into account. And Counsell is certainly part of that. That doesn't mean he's giving thumbs up or thumbs down on every single transaction. He calls himself a consultant, but we saw those teams in Milwaukee that always seemed to the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, right? That they would play matchups, Counsell would push the right buttons, and all of a sudden, they're winning 90 games. You have no idea how they did it. And so Counsell, likes Birdie. I think, part of it, what you're alluding to earlier is his best role everyday third baseman? Probably not. As the season goes on, I think you'd like to plug him in different places and have him, coming off the bench or giving certain guys rest. But he was certainly part of this embrace Wrigley that Dustin Kelly talked about on our last show, the Cubs hitting coach, of this should be a home field advantage. We know there are certain days where you just can't hit, where you're gonna have to manufacture offense, and this group that they have, I think certainly fits into that. And I was curious if you looked further into the numbers side. I know you asked Counsell about Turner the other day, of just kind of his bat speed, his lack of production thus far. What is the concern level at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to say red alert, because I Counsell is right. This guy hasn't played hasn't done the part-time playing thing before. He just hasn't done that. I think it's not a ton. It's not a big sample, so you don't want to take too much. It doesn't look good, right? Like I haven't seen hard contact, and you look at the numbers, things underneath, and it's not great. So yeah, I think it makes sense for a 40-year-old player to struggle. It wasn't unreasonable to think that. My argument against it was, look, he's produced every year. Like even last year, he produced offensively, and that's all he's here to do. Like a occasional starter, occasional pinch hit in a game late against a lefty, things like that. Like that. That shouldn't. And the thought in my mind, and I think with the Cubs was, part-time role is better for him. His body will stay fresh. He's a professional hitter. He'll be able to handle that. I don't think this is a rhythm thing when you watch it. It maybe it is. Maybe in the sense it's a rhythm thing in the sense that if he had 100 plate appearances or whatever right now, he'd be hitting better, right? Just because he'd have more opportunities up there. But I do want I guess that's the question. Is this a rhythm thing, or is this just an opportunity thing, in the sense that his next 30 plate appearances will be much better, right? Because the more time he goes out there, the more that's just more opportunity to get some hits. If he needs that everyday playing time, that's going to be an issue, right? He's just not going to get it. There's no reason to. He can't play every day at third. Michael Busch is a good ball player. One of your biggest bats. There's no reason to sit him. I don't see how he gets everyday playing time, and he certainly hasn't earned that, right? Carson Kelly has produced to enough that now he's getting a little bit more playing time than Amaya. At some point, Carson Kelly's going to slow down, and that'll go back to 50-50, right? It's one of those things that I'm going to continue to watch, and I'm just going to continue to see. Like I don't like to say like a guy's done, this guy's terrible, or this is until we're like really like, okay, there's been a lot going on here. But you are seeing like Counsell started Busch against a lefty the other day, right? It wasn't a great, it wasn't like a dominant lefty. It's Andrew Heaney, who's a good pitcher but not a great pitcher. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see what Counsell's decisions are going forward. I think he speaks more with his actions than his words sometimes, because especially with negative stuff, right? He didn't. We've asked him about Dansby Swanson. He didn't throw Dansby Swanson under the bus. He just moved him to the 8th spot, right? And he said he's a streaky hitter. He expected him to get hot, and he put him in the 8th spot. He didn't make a big grand pronouncement of like, I have to move this guy down. He didn't say anything. He just did it. Right. I think we kind of, let's watch how he uses Turner going forward. But I do think it's something to keep an eye on, and absolutely worth monitoring and seeing. Like, I don't know if there's an obvious fill-in in the minors, right? Someone did ask about Moises Ballesteros, and I didn't put that question in, but he's a lefty. Do you need another lefty bench off the bat? At some point, maybe you do, but you also probably want Moises Ballesteros playing all the time. This kind of touches on that in the sense that this was, I think, Nate's question touched on Moises Ballesteros. But what do you think about the fact that all three outfielders and Swanson have yet to get a day off? Is that a reflection of Counsell's view of his bench? Seems like they could wear down at this rate. Well, I mean, we just talked about the bench. I think the bench is pretty good. I think that there's a very simple answer here, Nate, and that's go look at all the off days that they had. They've played 32 games, but that was in like what, over 40 days, right? They had like 7 off days. I think they started 7 straight, and then just like had a ton of. I started 7 straight after Japan, right? 7 straight after Japan, and then just a ton of off days. So they did not. I would not worry about that. Here's where if we get through June and these guys haven't had days off, that's when you have to wonder what Craig Counsell is doing. They end June. I looked this up. I want to say 26 games in 27 days. That's how they end June. There will be days off for all of these guys. What here's my theory, and I think it's simple, and I think it makes sense. I haven't asked him about it just because of all the off days. But you get all those off days, you play them now. There's no need to rest them. It's the toughest part of the schedule. Let them play. It's early on. They just came off, they had a week-long break after the first 2 games, right? And they had time off, right? They barely played in those spring training games between Japan and Arizona. There's it's very simple. I don't think it's anything you need to overthink. And I certainly think we answered before that the bench is, he trusts his bench. He likes his bench, and he likes playing those guys. I'm not sure there's any. He has been asked about Swanson getting a day off here and there when the time comes, and it's just not. I just don't think there was a reason to do it right now.
No, I mean, now when he's playing defense at a Gold Glove level, he's been someone who posts. Ian Happ is someone who posts. Pico Armstrong's 23 years old. What? Who wants to see Kyle Tucker sit the bench? You have 1 year of Kyle Tucker. You make him play 9 innings every day, 162 games. No, I think if you look at Craig Counsell's track record, if you listen to his answers, and actually you're right, the actions are what speak the loudest with Craig Counsell, but his reputation is someone who very much keeps the long season in mind, conserving energy, preserving players' health. You can see it in how he aligns his starting rotation. And, this bench is maybe not entirely his bench, but he certainly had some influence in how it was shaped. And I do think, in terms of Moises, I think it's interesting. Like, if there is an injury, say with one of those outfielders or whatever, you got to think Moises is, option 1 or 1A at this point. Like, maybe you'd give Turner some more run to let him get into that sort of flow of the season. But otherwise, I think you'd feel pretty good about, kind of playing that card the way the Cubs did in 2015, when I think it was Schwarber coming up. And, they've had a couple players like that over the years, where Ian Happ, a long time ago, of just plugging that rookie in and seeing what happens. And I think that's probably what they'll do with Moises.
Yeah, I think Moises is going to come up at some point. He's he's ready for the big leagues when it comes to his bat, right? I don't know if he'll thrive like he is. I mean, he's not going to hit like he's hitting in AAA. He's hitting like over 400. But he's been awesome. I'm not sure what more he can do at AAA offensively, right? Obviously, it takes a while for any player to get ready, big league ready at catcher. For him especially, it was always a question. I think he's done tremendous work on his body to kind of get to a place where he can be passable. I'm not sure if he'll ever be an everyday catcher or, part-time catcher. It may just be I think what we've heard is like third catcher type thing, where he's DH and then comes in and starts or has the pitcher that he catches specifically, or just once a week is able to give guys a blow type thing, comes in late game in a blowout to catch, whatever it may be. We'll see if he catches this year in the big leagues, but I'd be surprised if he's not up at some point, right? Just kind of whether they hit a rough patch, whether there's injuries, whatever it is, he's good enough to come up. And here's another name that we're going to see, Cade Horton. Why not bring up Cade Horton immediately versus running up innings in Iowa? That's from Van Pelt. I asked this question to Craig.
You'll have a story coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah. I'll have a story on it. I think it's interesting. I think it's it's a fair question, and I think it's something that the front office people ask. Counsell's answer was basically listen, it's a fair question, but we got to get him. We got to make sure he's healthy. We got to make sure that he's ready. That he still has some things to prove there. Let's get him. Let's get his feet under him. Essentially, let's make sure that he's good to go, and then there'll be a time. And there was a follow-up asked whether he's, so the plan is you expect him to be up this year. There was like no doubt in that. I don't think it's gonna. I don't like. Again, I think we've said this on the podcast. I don't think this is a September call up. This is not an August thing.
No.
I think we're gonna see him relatively soon. Whether that's the end of May. I don't have a date. I don't have a timeline. I straight up asked Counsell if they have like, are there like things they're looking at? Okay, check mark here. Doesn't sound like that. It's just like, you'll know it when you see it. Maybe there'll be a feel as far as, okay, we can use a starter right now. Let's see how Ben Brown is doing. Colin Ray, how long can he keep this up? Those are all considerations, right?
Yeah, I also would think we alluded to the abundance of off days earlier, which means there'll be fewer off days later. If I remember correctly, I mean, the Cubs haven't had a rain out yet, right? Like if there's a doubleheader pops later, you alluded to that June schedule, the way it closes out that month. We've talked about how Counsell likes, he doesn't just announce a 6-man rotation, but he's always looking for opportunities to space out guys' outings and give them an extra day here or there. So like, it's not like if Cade Horton doesn't pitch for the Cubs this year, it meant something went really wrong. Like he's already at AAA. He's a first-round pick from a couple years ago. He's one of the top pitching prospects in the game. And I think there's very much something to like, this is a guy who did not have a ton of innings in college at Oklahoma. He was a 2-sport guy, football recruit. He was a 2-way player in baseball. He got hot, in that draft eligible year and, went to the College World Series, and the Sooners kind of rode that. And I think there's something to be said for that with the Cubs. Like this guy does not have a huge volume of innings, and, how many pitches does any pitcher have, in his arm? And like, if he's feeling it, and you've actually, pointed this out to me, Sahadev, but like, if it's not an unlimited amount and he's feeling good and his ceiling is that high, like see what happens. And I appreciate Counsell's, conservative nature on this. Like I'm not dismissing that at all, but at a certain point those voices in the organization saying, hey, we got to see what we got, are going to become louder and outweigh any sort of hesitations on maybe not every single developmental box has been completely checked. It's like, no, just see if he can get hitters out. And that doesn't, they're not going to ask him to throw 200 innings this year. Like maybe it's just sort of this piggyback or like in shorter bursts, like just see what you got, because if he's this good, there's no way the Cubs have 13 pitchers better than him in their organization.
Right. You were breaking up on my end there, so I didn't hear everything you said, but I did. So I just want to, if you said this, I apologize for repeating it, but they don't monitor just innings anymore. They don't monitor just pitch count. This is not how they do things anymore. Majority of organizations, they're not just looking at he's only thrown 100 innings in a season in the past. We cannot go over 120. Nope, they don't do that. They I think there's wearable devices. I think there's something called like Modus. That's one device that they wear. It like measures everything, right? Like it measures fatigue, essentially, is what they're measuring. And there's ways to measure that on the field, off the field, when you're working out. They're constantly, there's so much data that they're going through. So it's not as simple as pitch counts. It's not stuff that we even have access to. And honestly, I asked around, the Cubs don't really want to tell me too many things that they're measuring, that they're using. I think they believe that's like the advantage.
Those like the sports bra things that we see them wearing?
I think that's one of them.
One of
the things. Yeah, there's so much stuff that they use and that they're wearing and that they measure. So there's but there are people that they've hired, data scientists, I believe. There's a guy named Mike Zahn, I believe, who who may have written something for The Athletic at
I
some
believe
point
so.
years
Yeah.
ago, right?
Yeah.
And he's a big part of this. There's so many pitching coaches and that are from offshoots of Driveline and the like, that are just, things are much more advanced than they used to be 15 years ago. So it's a different game. It's a different way of measuring things. Their player development is a little bit different this year. The way they're handling pitchers, I'd go look at the innings pitched per game and the pitch count of guys like Nazir Muley and Jackson Wiggins, two guys that were coming off injury and they were being very careful with, and it seems like they're just pushing them harder now. It's similarly true of Cade Horton. I'll write more about this. They've figured some things out with his delivery where they've gotten him back to the 2023 version, and he's pretty nasty. So I expect him to be up at some point this year, and there's a good chance he makes an impact. He's that type of talent, and it's exciting for fans to have this type of pitching talent come up. So we'll see when that is. I don't think they're going to tip their hand right away. I don't think this is imminent, but I also don't think it's that far away. So we'll see when Cade Horton comes up. All right, Patrick. Thanks to everyone for those questions. We always appreciate you listening and reaching out and contributing to the show. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.